Welcome to the UFO Woman Show. I'm your host, Melisa Kennedy. And today we're going to talk about aliens. Are they good or are they bad? So I'd like to start out with a single word. I. It's a single letter word that actually has a lot of meaning behind it. It's a very strong word. But when you use the word I with another word am, then you have even a stronger word sentence of where you are in this world, what label, what type of person are you? And in our world, we come in as a baby. And we're going to pull up a little video here that shows the different life stages of humans. We go from a baby to not knowing that much about our existence and our world. And then we go into being a child, which is where we learn how our being is, if we are a man or a boy, or if we are a girl. We also are labeled poor, rich, I am smart, I am not smart. I am of this particular country, or I am of that particular country. There's a lot of our society that actually wants to put labels on things. And labels can be both good and bad. Much like what our topic of conversation today is aliens good? Are they good or are they bad? And as humans, we like to kind of fit something into a label or into a box. And the unfortunate part of doing that is sometimes when we are forced into a box, it's hard for us to think outside the box. And when you have someone who speaks out, they're often cast out. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about on the UFO Woman Show. I've brought this up several times, is when we are outside the box thinkers, we're usually labeled as conspiracy theories, or we are labeled as crazy. Well, you know, there's been a lot of talk lately in the news. We've had the government, we've had Pentagon, we've had military. A lot of officials have come out and they've talked about UFOs. They've talked about the existence or possible existence of extraterrestrials and this UFO phenomenon. Well, we've talked about what it means to believe and what it means to know. We are definitely in the know, and we don't believe that UFOs exist. We know that they exist. And so therefore we know that life on other planets exists. But we're often asked, are they good or are they bad? And we just have to, as humans, put labels on that. Well, I like to always say that there's a yin and a yang. There's a good and the bad. And that is the case when we talk about extraterrestrials. Are there good humans? Absolutely. Are there bad humans? For sure. And I think in the world right now, what we're seeing is a trend to try to put a cap on how much we know, how much information we are given. And so therefore, when you suppress the information, you are much easier people to control as far as your thinking process goes. When you, like I said a couple weeks ago, when you have that postage stamp reality, you tend to only think about that reality and not something on a grander scale. So when you narrow the reality, it's easier to control. But when you step out of the box and you have a broader reality, well, then it opens up a whole nother can of worms, so to speak. So with that being said, I saw something on, I believe it was YouTube here recently, and it was this video. And yeah, there's a lot of things out there on YouTube that are, you know, wrong or misinformation or misguided. But there's sometimes something that you come across that it makes you think, like, well, that's an interesting thought. What if this were true? And this particular video was talking about the suppression of the human race by an alien race in efforts to control this planet. Well, one of the best ways to control a group of people is by putting fear into them. When you are coming from a mindset of fear, your vibrational level is really small. You're vibrating on a much lower frequency, which is something that we've talked about on this show. We've talked about raising our vibration, raising our frequency so that we can ascend to a higher being, which is what our intergalactic friends are. But when you suppress a race, when you suppress a group of beings so that they vibrate on a lower level, and a lot of the ways to do that is through fear tactics, then you're much easier to control and dominate. So this video was talking about the possibility of a particular alien race, reptilian, draconian, are suppressing the human race in efforts to control. Whereas you have other alien races, such as Palladians, I'm going to use them as an example, that are a much higher frequency and actually want to guide and help ascend the human race. And so that's a little bit what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about, there's so many different alien races. We're not going to get to all of them, but we are going to touch on a few. And what we believe their baseline mission is, and what do we believe the end game could be for humanity. And really and truly, guys, it's all in our hands. It's in our control. So let's not forget who we are. We are humans, and we can still think. It's not illegal yet. We can still think on our own, and we still have the freedom of choice as of today. So I want you to be thinking about what kind of world you want. What kind of freedoms do you want? Or do you want to be completely 100% controlled in what you do, what you say, what you think, and how you react? And as you know, on this show, we're uncensored every single time. So please show your support by sharing our show with all your friends, all your family. If you're on social media, just click that little share button, click the like. It takes 2 seconds, and you can help support uncensored media, which is definitely going by the wayside in this day and age. So we would appreciate your support. So with that said, I'd like to include Edgar and Kevin here, as always, my two buddies, and talk about what alien races that we know of. And there's a lot out there. I don't even think we know all of them yet, but there are a lot of extraterrestrials out there, and I try to stay away from the word alien, although I know I've said it a few times already, because that seems to be the mainstream word that we use. But I don't like the word alien for many, many reasons. We use the word alienate. Well, what does alienate mean? It means to cast out. It means to, get away from the group. Well, in some ways, getting away from the group is a good thing, because that means we're thinking for ourselves and we're not being controlled in our thinking. But sometimes alienate means to just leave you hanging, just leave you out there on the side of a road. So I don't really like the word alien or alienate, because it's got such a negative connotation to it. So the three of us, I know, like to use the words extraterrestrial or intergalactic. And we've even talked about interdimensionals. And there's definitely good and bad in everything. There are alien or extraterrestrial races that are wanting to control the humans. And that can be done in a variety of ways. It can be done telepathically. It can be done in our day-to-day lives, telling us what to do, what to wear, where to go, how much to get. And once that happens, once that is all taken away and we don't have a choice anymore, then we become victims of their control. And a way to, overcome that is by raising our vibration, by becoming such a high frequency, such a high vibrational being that they can no longer stand us, and they're going to go prey on another planet and find alternative ways to get control. And that is something that we do have in our power, should we choose to use it. So let's pull up. I have a graphic. I didn't get all the alien races, but I do have a graphic that I want to show. We have Palladians, we have Arcturians. Obviously, there's going to be Reptilians that we've talked about. There's the Greys. I mean, there's quite a few there, but there's a lot more. I would have to have probably a whole show full of pictures to show all the different extraterrestrial races. But just because they look different than we do doesn't mean that we should label them as scary, bad, threatening. I know a lot of creatures that live on Earth that might not look as cute as we might want them to be, but they're harmless and they're loving creatures. So just because something looks different than a human being doesn't mean that we should immediately label them as a threat, label them as a bad thing, because a lot of times they're not. And I'm a little bit concerned about some of the trends I'm seeing in the media to label UFOs and extraterrestrials as threats. And the concern I have is when we come from a mindset of, oh, they're a threat, well, next thing you know, we are using violence and weaponry to combat something that may not even be a threat. So let's talk about that. All right, guys, let's get into this conversation. Let's dive head first, because I like to stir the pot, and that's what we're going to do some today. And I have these cute little extraterrestrial alien figurines that many of you are probably familiar with on the set today, because I just thought, yeah, they're cute and they're positive, and I always like to come from a mindset of positive. So, we've seen, Kevin, in the media, this ongoing narrative that UFOs and extraterrestrials are threatening. And my question is, well, if they were threatening, wouldn't we already know that?
Oh, I'm certain, without a doubt. As you know, and I'm sure your viewers know now, that I've had direct contact with ETs from the age of 8. And I contact with 5 different species, and they're all benevolent. And yeah, we do have to think outside the box, and now we're able to speak more openly about it, I think.
Right.
People like myself, as experiencers, I'm speaking to more and more now, and some have had a negative contact with some ETs. I'm aware of that. A friend of mine, Terry Lovelace, who I hope to have on the show sometime, that he had a negative contact with his first group of ETs. But so, yeah, there are the good ones and the bad ones. And I did ask my group of ETs about this. And they said that, like in every race, like in humans, there are good and there are bad. The group that I speak with represent a council of 8. And they say that the majority of species out there, the most proliferate, are the greys. And there are some greys that just won't join any groups, any councils. They're like rogues. They just do what they want.
Oh,
they take
like teenagers.
They're like teenagers, yes.
They're teenage aliens.
And then they also did mention the reptilians.
Yes. Now, see, the reptilians are of particular interest to me, because we have some theories out there that the Rh negative bloodline can be traced. And there's a couple of theories. Could be traced to reptilian. Also could be traced to Anunnaki. There's a lot of theories out there as to where the Rh negative bloodline comes from. I am an Rh negative person, and I'm also an Rh negative theorist. And so I like to research all these different theories, Kevin. And so, when you talk about the reptilians, let's talk about that for a second, because that is something that, my goodness, there's a lot of negative connotation, I think, to the reptilian race. And I've been seeing a lot of commonalities in theories that they are one of I'm going to say, a baseline of control, dominate, destroy type of species. Do you agree with that? I mean, what have you seen? Because I've read a lot about the reptilians.
Okay, I don't have a great deal of contact with the reptilians myself. I was told by the group of ETs that I contact that the reptilians, again, they don't want to join any councils or anything. They just do what they want to do. They go to whatever planet they want to go and take what they want. But I know that I've heard one story of a benevolent reptilian who healed someone.
Isn't that the Royal Draco? Is
Yes,
that
I
the one
think
I'm
so,
thinking
yes,
of?
yes.
Okay, so see, there's a couple of different, well, I would say kind of, I don't know, subspecies of the reptilian.
I've only had one contact with a reptilian, and that was probably about 9 months ago. I was at home relaxing, and he sort of came into my vision, and he didn't speak because I don't speak, but what he wanted, he was there to see how a human being could have the communication abilities that I have. And he was very scary looking.
Oh, yeah.
Typical reptilian that you see in the sketches and everything. And his thought was he was there to see, and he had totally disregard for me whatsoever.
It was like you were just nothing.
Nothing, but he just wanted to know why I had these communication abilities with all the other species. And that's the only contact I've had. I've had contact with the Greys.
How tall was he? Was he like, like 8, 9 feet? I mean, pretty big?
He was quite tall. I would say probably 7 feet.
7 feet?
Big, stocky. This head, which was, well, just like a reptilian. I mean, it was just,
was it kind of like crocodile-ish?
I would say so. Yes,
okay.
That type of skin. Yeah, it was like that. No, think about it.
Because I've also channeled reptilians, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Well, what do you guys think? I mean, I've seen some pretty outrageous things on, YouTube, and I love to surf and find different tidbits about the different races. And one of the things about the reptilian that I've seen is that they are like shapeshifters that a lot of our politicians and our royal families and leaders of the world are of reptilian bloodline, or maybe they're shapeshifters. And I've seen things where like their eyes change. Of course, it could all be photoshopped. I'm not saying it's real or not real. I'm just saying that that's what's out there on the internet. And they talk about how, the reptilians are the ones in power, which is kind of what I mentioned at the beginning of the show as a possibility. And if that's the case, wow, then they've already kind of taken over the planet as far as our leadership goes, which then also brings me to the cabal. And we're going to go there for just a second. The cabal, and in cahoots with what is happening in the world and what has happened in the world. And could they possibly be, in control of everything behind the scenes, and what we see is just the theatrics, the puppetry, if you will. What do you think about that, Edgar? You think that's a possibility?
It's truly a possibility, because Germany during World War II knew that these creatures existed, and then also Harry S. Truman, right before he left office, signed a few more documents into being, like the NAS and the CIA. All these government agencies was brought forth before Dwight D. Eisenhower took office. And by the time Dwight D. Eisenhower was stepping down and President Kennedy was coming into the picture, if anybody wants to go back and listen to Dwight D. Eisenhower's final speech, he says, "Be ever watchful or careful to the shadow government." And he didn't say shadow government, but he meant he was talking about the cabal. And Paul Hellyer brought that forth in his speech back in 2014 when he wrote the book, The Money Mafia. He also brought this forward. But the reptilians have been controlling a lot of things. There's been pictures of the royal family where they've shape-shifted. And there was, in the 1980s, there was a chemical that you could buy Now you have to have a top secret clearance to even get a hold of this chemical to make a specific glass that can see the higher vibrations of light frequencies that we cannot see, such as infrared and some of the other frequencies that animals can see that we cannot see. And so that chemical is all but banned from this entire society. You have to be a special research scientist with all kinds of clearances to get this particular chemical to make this glass. And so we've been being censored since the late 70s, actually even before that, but since the late 70s and into the 80s. Another interesting note about about not just reptilians, but we actually did travel to another star system. It was in Zeta Reticula, and it's called Journey to Planet Serpo. It did happen. It was supposed to happen when Kennedy was in office, but because when he got assassinated, things got pushed back, and they went to Arizona during the Johnson administration, and we sent 12 astronauts to another star system, and they hitched a ride with these people from the Zeta Reticula star system. So we've been contacted many times by the intergalactics, and they're walking amongst us. They shape shift. They look like humans, but they're here mainly to observe and to help if we know how to ask them for help.
Right, and I think that's where we've been talking about raising our vibration levels beyond the third dimension, which is where we're currently living, because as we raise our vibration, then we become almost untouchable by the lower vibration entities such as the interdimensionals, which are anything from spirits to demons to whatever leeches that you want to talk about that want to suck the energy out of us. And I think I'm going to even throw intergalactics in there, because a lot of them, it's almost like they feed on our negative emotions, our fear. And I just really feel like, guys, that we're at a tipping point right now in our society that we are being scared to death to leave our house. And if we leave our house, we feel like we have to be muzzled and protected, and it's not doing anything, actually. But what it is doing is it's creating a fear-based mindset, which is primed for control. And if you're a negative intergalactic species preying on our planet, wow, how easy is it to put fear into people and then take them over slowly but surely, one day at a time, just chip away at all of our freedoms, chip away at all of our thinking, which makes us human. If you take that away, we now become something that you can turn into anything, robotic or otherwise, because you're no longer a free-thinking human. You are no longer a threat when those things go away. So, I just feel like in the cosmic timeline right now, even though we know time and space kind of don't exist, but in this point in our lives and history, I feel like either something really big in a bad way is going to happen, or something really big in a good way is going to happen. And I don't know if that chapter has been written yet or not, but I feel like we have the ability to control what that outcome is. If we get enough people to awaken, and I like to say, I am awake. That's that powerful word combination, I, and then am, and then whatever you want to fill in the blank afterwards is such a profound thing to say. We are so oftentimes put into labels of what we should be instead of labels of what we ought to be. And I think right now is such a pivotal time in our history that we can say either I am awake or I am controlled. I am free thinking. I am not. I am a leader. I am a sheep. So I just, I think it's, I don't know, I just think it's really important that we stop and realize and remember who we are and not what we're being told that we are. Would you agree with that, Kevin?
I would agree entirely with that. I think exactly in relation to the vibrational frequencies, yes, there were different levels, and we're probably in the middle somewhere, and there's the lower vibrational frequencies, which you've already spoken about, and then the higher vibrational frequencies, which are the ETs themselves. And just raising that vibrational frequency as a species ourselves, that's contagious and that will spread. But we are finding, as you say now, we've got those people who don't think for themselves and those that do. And we're sort of divided down the line now, but we can help educate everybody in relation to the ETs that are here. They are amongst us. We've known this. Well, I've known this since I've been a child, but there are many now globally that know this. We are awakening up to the fact that the ETs are here. We don't see them because of the higher vibrational frequencies, the light frequencies that they use. In fact, on one occasion, Orton D referred to themselves as light beings.
Oh, they actually call themselves light beings. Well, that's interesting because that's kind of what they are, because they're such a higher frequency.
But then are we light beings, but at a lower frequency?
But it's such a lower frequency, but yet we could change that.
Yes.
We could change that, which brings me to another point. There are extraterrestrials out there that specialize, I'm going to use the word specialize, guys. They specialize in DNA manipulation.
Yes.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, that's clear. If you look at the evolution of the human, there's a gap. I mean, I remember in school going, well, that just doesn't make any sense. I question a lot of things in my life. I guess that's why I'm in the position I am. But, when you look at the evolution of the human, it doesn't make sense. There's too many gaps. There's too many unanswered questions, which then leads me, Edgar, to the fact that, well, if the extraterrestrial races that do specialize in the DNA manipulations were in fact here, which they were, because we've seen too many evidence to support otherwise, that the manipulating of the DNA by these extraterrestrials, either to help us or to hurt us, there's kind of two schools of thought there. What do you think, Edgar?
Well, what's happened is we've lost some of our DNA. That's what causes us to age. Because some of the species live up to 5,000 years, and it's been recorded in Earth history, in the Earth Chronicles by Zachariah Sitchin, that certain races were here for 26,000 years before it changed hands. And this is a man that spent 33 years of his life before he wrote the first word to create the 12th planet. So we've been visited for centuries. The hieroglyphs in Egypt all have intergalactic overtones. They've got devices and stuff what we now have, like helicopters and missiles and rockets and you name it. What's in our modern warfare? They've got, if you go and start looking at their hieroglyphs, they are there. And they've taken many a picture of these. And people just kind of dismiss it. But no, down in South America, there was some pyramids that were built. And we're talking dovetail-type stone joints. And these buildings were completely blown apart, because there was an intergalactic war on this planet. This isn't the first time that planet Earth has been a battlefield for other extraterrestrials.
Right, and it's almost like it's an experiment. I mean, I look at some of these extraterrestrial races, and the picture that we showed earlier, I mean, some of them kind of almost look like the animals that we have on this planet, correct?
Yes. So
here's our picture. I mean, look at the one, it kind of looks almost like a bird. And I think, don't you have some
Yes,
interactions
I
with
have
them,
one.
Kevin?
She looks very similar to that. Although,
Okay.
I think I've seen that photograph before. She has like a chicken beak.
Yeah, and the blue,
the blue bird avian
feathers.
type that I've seen.
Right.
Her name is Anna. She has a duck bill beak. It's just like a small duck beak.
Okay.
But she's empathic. She's a healer. I don't know where she's from. I don't know a great deal about her, but I've met her several times. But I can also confirm with what Edgar's saying there about the DNA. I was told by my ET guides that they activated my DNA when I was younger to activate the psychic abilities which I have. And they also said that when you start reaching certain levels, your DNA activates naturally. It's like a blueprint. So you get so far along and then it self-activates. And one of the ETs that I speak with, Ra, he's Anunnaki, he's the leader of the group. And he's over 5,000 years old, just what Edgar told me. So he told me that. So all this information is really coming together now. But if we talk about it, we sounded like we're delusional or whatever. But a bit like Galileo, when he, I'm sure Edgar will confirm this, when he said the Earth was round and not flat, it went against the scientists of the day, the mainstream of the day.
Right.
So they imprisoned him in his own home for 15 years until he relented and said, yeah, okay, it's flat.
Well, now we're not being so much imprisoned, but we're being imprisoned with the information that we are not getting.
Exactly.
So censorship, again, please share, please like our show on all your social media handles. Those of you that are watching, we would really appreciate it because it does help. And if you like shows like ours that is uncensored for once, then certainly your support's much appreciated. Well, I mean, you bring up a good point there, guys, because you know, I feel like there are extraterrestrials that are builders. In other words, they're the ones that kind of go to a planet and help build a society, help build a civilization. And I would consider those to be good. If I had to put a label on it, because that's what we like to do, I would say they would be good. I would even go as far as saying that some of the DNA species, I guess you could say, the ones that like to manipulate the DNA of different beings, in a lot of ways I think they're good. And if they could if they could come up with a way for us to live longer and youthful, I'm all about that. Because can I sign up for that? I want like a cream or something, or some sort of a pill that I could take that'll, you know, make me like 33 again. And
we as a species, we already alter DNA of animals.
we do that now.
We
You're
do
right.
that now, and we're a young species. So if you're the much older species within the galaxies, they obviously can do that. And
and they're so much more intelligent than we are, and they've been around longer than we have. And then Edgar, I heard you whisper over here, you said plants. My gosh, yeah, we have GMO plants, which, by the way, I only buy non-GMO as much as possible because I don't want the genetically engineered or modified food.
I think sometimes the geneticists who alter the DNA to cure health problems, that's beneficial to us.
It can be, unless it's taken too far.
Unless it's taken too far, yeah.
See,
I'm a fine balance again.
It really is. There's that fine balance of, you know, okay, let's maybe improve something. But I don't know. I personally think Mother Nature knows what she's doing, and I don't think we should tinker with it too much, because I think when we tinker with it, we're getting ourselves into some trouble.
Oh, we're going to definitely destroy ourselves with all this tinkering. And that brings up another point about the intergalactics and coming here. They walk amongst us, and as we raise our vibrational levels, we become more like the universe, and the universe becomes more like us, which is what they already have obtained. And mainstream don't want us to have this higher vibrational level, because as we get this higher vibrational level of being, they can no longer control us. And this is what the gurus, the swamis, and the other shamans, they all knew this. The Native Americans knew this. And when the Europeans came to this continent, they thought, oh, well, they need to bow down to our ways or we destroy them. And we have all but wiped out the Native American tribes with religion and also with genocide because they were highly evolved in ways that we're not.
Right, in ways that we weren't. And we should probably pay attention to the ways that they had, because they actually knew a whole lot more about the universe than we probably do. And, and again, it goes right back to what I said at the beginning of the show, the labels. As humans, we feel like we have to say, I am Native American, or I am white, or I am Hispanic, or I am Asian, or I am black, or I am this and I am that. Okay, so let's just get away with all those labels. All labels, any labels, let's get away with it and just be human. And once we can try to realize that we're part of a universe and not part of a state or part of a nation or part of a tribe or part of this or part of that, if we get away from the label aspect and we just become I, well, I is really all-encompassing of the universe, because we're all part of the universe. And that's where I think I personally have the trouble with coming at life from other planets as threatening. Okay, it's only threatening if we perceive it to be threatening. And it goes right back to our prior conversations we've had on the show, and that is our perceived reality. Right now, our perceived reality is we're in a pandemic. That's a perceived reality. Once we begin to think outside the box and we start to think more of a expanded, broadened reality in that we are part of a universe, then the possibilities are endless. And
I think I agree. I'm always agreeing with you. I don't know why, but
oh, no, come on, Kevin. It's good to agree with Melisa. I'm just saying.
But I think that we also need to expand our understanding and knowledge of the ETs. We tend to have that fear factor with them. We don't tend to think like Zark. He has a sense of humour. He moves my wife's things around the house, and I asked him why he did that, and he liked teasing it. He thought it was funny. Well, my wife doesn't think it's funny, but it shows they have a sense of humour. And then I know he has 3 offspring. I don't know whether they call them children or not, but he had issues with them, and he had to go back home to deal with the issues because he has a family. We don't think them as having families,
right,
having sense of humour, having a job. He's a mathematician, an engineer. He designs propulsion systems.
And which extraterrestrial species is he from?
He's a small grey.
He's a small grey.
Yeah.
And see, this is my point, guys. Here is an extraterrestrial that is a family. They have family. They have jobs, like what you're saying, and a sense of humor. Yeah, they don't look like us. I mean, they kind of look like this little guy, which is so cute, by the way, or my little mug that's always on the show. I mean, they look different than we do. Yeah, at first it might be a little bit, a little bit frightening, but is it though? I mean, we're probably scary to look into them.
Once we get used to the idea of their features, and we realise they're really not much different to us, maybe a little bit more advanced spiritually. They have telepathic abilities, they have healing abilities, but we have healing abilities, we're just not taught how to use them.
Right.
I was speaking with someone the other day, and one of his friends, she'd had a eczema on her ankle for 15 years, and he said it was as big as his hand, and he said, I can heal that for you if you want. She says, well, how will you do that? So he held his hands over the area that was inflamed, and within 4 days it had disappeared, and she'd had it for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Well, that shows the power of healing, the power of the energy that's in the us as beings.
Right.
Well, all the ETs do that, so the pharmaceutical companies will go out of business.
Well, yeah.
We won't need them anymore. We'll heal ourselves, or go to specific healers who use energy.
Well, and we talked about that in our book, which is right here, Tap into Universal Energy, which the 3 of us wrote together. And we talk about that. We talk about how to understand cosmic energy and understand universal consciousness, and how we truly do have the power to not only heal ourselves, but manifest the reality that we want. And Reiki is one of the things that we talk about in there. We also talk about crystals, which I have to mention. I have this pretty necklace on that was actually created created and made for me by one of our biggest fans, Miss Sharon Lewis. She made this for me and sent it to me, so thank you so much. I love getting little gifts from our fans and everything. I really do appreciate your time and effort to send me things like that. So kudos out to Miss Sharon because she does a good job. But crystals are one of the things that we can use. Reiki, definitely, Edgar, is something that we can do as well. But just understanding that we're all connected. We're kind of like Wi-Fi. I mean, our thoughts, our reality is all interrelated. And if you don't think that's possible, I would like to bring up the fact that there has been actual evidence of this even in the animal kingdom. I think you've even talked about the monkey
the
story.
100 monkeys,
You
yes,
want to just briefly summarize, just real quick, tell our audience what that was?
A section of the monkeys were taught how to wash food, and then one of them taught the daughter, and then they taught the rest of the troop. But then, say 100 miles away, there was another island that hadn't had contact with these, and because this group of 100 monkeys all knew how to do that, then the conscious thought and energy and information was transferred to the troop on the monkey troop on an island, say 50 or 100 miles away. And that's how, with shared consciousness, that we learn how to do these things.
Right,
Yes.
right. And then through Reiki, I know, Edgar, you also do Reiki. You want to talk about how we can heal with our thoughts and with our intentions?
By raising your vibrational levels up, and this is one of the things that I was given as a gift when I had my encounter in 2015 down south of Mulberry. They gave me or activated the gift that I already had that I didn't know I had. And by raising the energy levels up on my hands, I can actually balance others' energies where they have a ailment of some sort, and it can be done even with torn ligaments and stuff if it's treated correctly. And I allow my guides to tell me how to do it and how to hold the energy, and also use therapeutic touch with it. It does work. It will also bring a person's balance back if they can't stand 1 foot without weebling and wobbling. And you can rebalance a person's energies by rebalancing what we call the chakra energies. In India, they knew about this. Buddha knew about this. The Hindus know about this. All those Eastern religions, and we were never taught about this stuff. It was taboo. The Native Americans knew about this. Again, it was taught out of us. It was taboo, and now it's becoming more and more mainstream, comparatively speaking, to what it was just 50 years ago.
Thankfully. That's a good thing. And
This is an awakening.
It's an awakening, and I believe that there are several extraterrestrial races out there that are healers. They are visiting us. I know I personally have had experiences with spirit guides, extraterrestrials, and I know that they have opened my third eye chakra. My psychic and my medium abilities are definitely enlightened here lately. And I think that those extraterrestrial species are ones that are here to help humanity. They're here to guide us. They're here to heal us. And so that would certainly be a huge example of good aliens or good extraterrestrials. So they're not all bad, but I really do think that going back to the Matrix and things like that we've talked about on the show, I mean, if indeed we are a prison planet or a planet under the rule of a negative or bad extraterrestrial race, clearly I think 2020 kind of shows us that, because it's been the year that we all want to forget, and we all want to be knocked into 2021 where we're hoping that it's going to be better. But I think it's only going to be better if we take matters into our own hands and we make sure that it's better, and we don't keep following what's being told us to do, and that is getting the control back in our hands and not giving up our control to others.
And again, it's expanding that knowledge and opening up to the fact that the ETs are here to help us heal. They'll teach us how to heal, but if you ask them if you've got a specific ailment, and you can ask your own guides or the ET guides, and I know several examples now of people that have been healed by asking the ETs. They come into the bedrooms in the evening and cure them of their ailments. In fact, there was a whole chapter written in Beyond UFOs by Dr. Joseph Burks about healings that he'd collected, researched, interviewed the people, and he included it in that book, and there were many there. I know I've had my own. I had some growths, one on my wrist here and two on my elbow, and I looked at them on the internet to see what they were, and they got quite big and they were changing colour, and they looked like melanomas. So I asked my ET guides, I said, look, these things seem to be getting worse. I went to bed, I said, can you remove them for me? If you don't remove them this evening, I will have to go to the conventional doctor and have some treatment for them. So I went to bed, I woke up in the morning, the two on the elbow there, they were about as big as your fingernail, two of them completely disappeared. The one on the wrist here, it had, where it was, there was a red line around where the edge of the growth would have been, and within the day that completely disappeared, and there's no scar or anything.
No, there's
but that
not.
was just for asking. But obviously because I've got the contact.
Because you asked, right?
I asked, so.
Well, and you have almost daily interactions with them though, too, right? I mean,
they're part of my life. They're part of who I am. So,
but that's your reality. That's your
my reality.
normal.
It is, yes, my normal.
You know, I think we're redefining what normal really is. In a lot of ways. But so we just have a few minutes left, and I want to just kind of touch on something that I'm concerned may happen in the next month or so, and that's a red flag or a false flag event where a UFO invasion occurs, and it is done in a way to bring, again, fear. I mean, we're already scared to death. Everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off, except for the three of us, I think. And I think that that's like the one thing that's missing. And if there were a false invasion, and it would happen, say, in September or October, it may just be that last little event that kind of puts everything over the edge. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm concerned with what I'm seeing that's happening in the government and what's happening in the media, and how this trend of saying that this is a threat when I think it's not. It could just be that these extraterrestrials are doing recon. Maybe they're just seeing what kind of technology we have because they're trying to keep an eye on us to make sure we don't blow ourselves up. Now, Edgar, you've been in the Air Force for 20 years, so you definitely can speak to this and how possibly the idea of being a threat is maybe just a notion of being recon and not a threat. What do you think?
Well, 1945, when we blew up the atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they had to do tests out in the Nevada test site. And that we basically rang the dinner bell that, hey, we now have this nuclear capability of blowing things up. And that's when the intergalactic started showing up more and more and more. They have shut down our missile silos. They even shut down the USS Nimitz for about 15 minutes. Anything that has nuclear capability, they've been monitoring so that we don't tear a hole in the space-time continuum. And so most of the peaceful entities out there are trying to keep everything on an even keel. But we have those that have other things, that agendas on this planet, that they want total control of everything. And space really has no boundaries. Earth really has no boundaries, but we've created these boundaries as a society, as a species. And now we want to take and control everything, including the moon. not feasible, but this is where they're pushing the next wars to, is out into interstellar space. And that's not a good thing. We sent out a probe about being peaceful when we're the most violent planet within all of the cosmos, and we are probably the most feared species out here in the cosmos, because we were given the choice of thought and the choice of emotion. And it's the emotion that's our detriment.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's a shame, really, because we need to awaken ourselves to the fact that we do have so many good attributes as a being. You know, we do. We have emotion. We have feeling, we have touch, we have all these things that a lot of extraterrestrials either have forgotten or they've, I don't know, evolved maybe, and I don't know, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But, you know, as humans, we have to remember who we are. We have to remember that we are supposed to be a loving and peaceful and free-thinking race. That's what we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be controlled. We're not supposed to be robotic. We're not supposed to be hidden. And I think that that's the trend that's happening right now, this dehumanization of our planet. And my gosh, if any of this is true, that extraterrestrial, negative extraterrestrial race is behind a lot of this, then for sure we need to wake up.
Yeah, I haven't been given any information towards that. All the information I'm getting it's coming from our shadow government, shall we say. The people, the industrial military complex, who are really controlling everything.
Exactly.
And that's scary too.
Well, it's scary too, yes.
So it's either our own terrestrial race or it's an extraterrestrial race.
But I'm told by the ETs that...
Or a combination of both.
A combination of both, possibly.
Right.
I know I was told something that Edgar touched on briefly about having this technology we've reached today in the past. And I was told thousands and thousands of years ago we'd already had this technology and we destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons.
Yes.
My ET guides tell me that will be the only time they will step in if nuclear weapons are used again in conflict on our planet. They will do that. And that's interesting to know, because they mentioned recently about the cold fusion weapon that I believe that we have now from my ET guides.
Yes.
Well, that is a nuclear weapon. So if our industrial military complex decided to use that, then that will be an open door for the ETs to come in and announce their presence, as it were. Because as Edgar said, something about it explodes into the space-time continuum every time that a nuclear weapon goes off. I don't know anything about cold fusion. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about nuclear weapons or anything, but I just know what the ETs tell me, the information that they
Everything is frequency.
Right.
And when you start taking everything and varying those frequencies, this is what these cell towers and Elon Musk with all his crazy satellites he keeps putting up there, it's radiating this planet with high energy frequencies up to 60 gigahertz. 60 gigahertz can change the oxygen molecule as to how we are able to absorb or not absorb the oxygen. And so take it for what it's worth, department. Do your own research. I've researched it. If I can research this stuff out, the rest of you out there in TV land can research this stuff as well. And I appreciate watching this show from my perspective, and I hope y'all have a great day.
Yeah, well, I just think it's important that we take notice as a human race, and we see that we have the potential to change all of this. And whether it's an extraterrestrial or our own that's controlling the plight of this planet, power's in the numbers. Power is in the numbers. And right now it's completely upside down. So we have the ability and we have the power to
change that. We do, yeah.
Yes, we do. We can raise ourselves to a higher vibrational level. We can change this thought process. We can change our freedoms, change our thinking if we just do it collectively.
I'd like to say something that's really important before we finish.
Yes,
If
please
that- is
do.
that okay. This is called Yoda.
Yes.
I've decided a name for him, Edgar.
Edgar.
Because he looks and talks like Edgar.
He does.
So I thought that was very interesting, and I needed to get that in before you finish, because once you get into your monologue, you just keep going. So
I
had
do
to
keep
interrupt,
going.
'cause I'm
Thanks,
gonna- I'm
Kevin.
going to leave Edgar there. Okay,
Yes.
Edgar?
He is very cute. And, you know, we try to have fun on this show. But we are talking about some pretty serious topic matters. But, you know, it is a pivotal point in our history. And I think it's our responsibility to get the word out and to help people see beyond what's being told. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of misguided information out there for their own personal agendas. And I think once we remember who we are, and we always come from a place of love. If we come from here, you kind of can't go wrong. I remember my grandmother told me you can win more friends with honey than you do vinegar. And that's coming from a place of love. That's coming from a place of happiness. And with that, I would like to leave the show and remind everyone that if you change what you know, you change where you go. And that's a profound statement. It's a thought-provoking statement that I hope you will take to heart. And if you haven't got a copy of our book yet, Tap into Universal Energy, please do. And until next time, I'm your host, Melisa Kennedy. Keep looking up.